Hello everyone, my name is Jed. As many of you know, one of the great defenders of our faith passed away on May 19th, 2020. I've been listening to him for the past 8 years, from his many books to the speeches that he spoke. God has truly given us one of the greatest apologists of our time. And I want to thank you, Ravi, for all that you've done. And in this video, I want to talk about some of the things that have happened in his life and some lessons that he's taught me along the way. Here's my tribute to Ravi Zacharias.
This world is not our home. This is not our home. We are renters. We rented this place very, very temporarily. We are here for a while and then we're gone. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. His love has no limit, his grace has no measure, his power has no boundaries known unto men. For out of his infinite riches in Jesus he giveth and giveth and giveth again.
On March 26, 1946, in a city called Chennai, India, Ravi Zacharias was born. Ravi lived with his parents, his 2 brothers, and his 2 sisters. See, growing up, Ravi actually feared his father, while his mother was the one who shaped his soul. His family already had a Christian background that traces back to his great-great-great-grandmother, where she turned to Christ while being with Christian missionaries in Kerala, India. As Ravi grew, his sense of purpose was absent, and he wandered around life without direction. He didn't excel in school, his own life felt void of meaning, and his father did not believe in him. Although he had a Christian background, Ravi himself was a skeptic. All throughout his life, he was constantly reminded of his failures, and he looked for answers but found no hope. It was because of all of this that at the age of 17, Ravi attempted to take his own life. You know, it's crazy when you think about Jesus on the cross when he cried out the words, my God, why have you forsaken me?" At that very moment, when he cried out those words, at the height of his desolation, his feelings of desolation, it was in actual fact, he was at the center of his father's will. At the hospital bed where Ravi laid, a man named Fred David brought a Bible and pointed out a verse saying, "This is for Ravi." His mother read this sentence out loud. "Because I live, you also will live." John 14:19. This very verse gave Ravi hope. He prayed, "Jesus, if you are the one who gives life as it is meant to be, I want it. Please get me out of this hospital bed, and I promise I will leave no stone unturned in the pursuit of truth." At that very moment when Ravi attempted suicide, he thought he was the furthest away from God. But God turned to him and actually gave him new life and not a life of death. You know, it's crazy how God really weaved this verse into his life, because 30 years later, he found this very same verse etched into his grandmother's grave. As Ravi said, a purposeful design emerges when the Father weaves a pattern from what to us may often seem desperate threads. Even today, if you will stop and attend to it, you will see that God is seeking to weave a beautiful tapestry in your life. As the years progressed, his hunger for God grew, and in May to August of 1971, at the age of 25, Ravi was asked to preach in Vietnam, in the middle of the Vietnam War. It was there that God called him to become an evangelist. God took Ravi's broken life and weaved it back together, building him from the inside out and steadied him to what seemed to be a faltering life. And after the Vietnam War in 1972, he decided to marry his lifelong partner, Margie Reynolds. 2 years after his marriage, he was asked to preach in Cambodia, but before leaving, his father gave him a letter asking to bridge the gap between them, saying that he's sorry for all the hurt he's done to him growing up. The changes in Ravi and his siblings literally changed his own father, to turn to God. And after all of these events that have happened in his life, I'm sure many of you are asking at this point, when did Ravi Zacharias go from evangelist to the great apologist? Well, in 1983, after a Billy Graham conference, he did a sermon, and then after the sermon, he realized he was battling in the wrong places. He wanted to reach a new goal, and his new goal was to reach the Thomases of the world, the doubters, the ones who saw life as not making any sense. So in August of 1984, Ravi Zacharias International Ministries was born. Ravi's calling, as he said, was to be a classical evangelist in the arena of the intellectually resistant. You see, in 1 Peter 3:15-16, it says, "Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience, so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander." Ravi Zacharias has given me many teachings, and if I went over everything that he has taught me and all the details of his life, from his love story to the Vietnam War, I'd be talking here for days. But some of the things that he has shown me is that in our pursuit of truth, our walk with God can be so beautiful. From the poetry to his words, to the meaning behind my faith. You know, when I used to live in North Carolina, I would take trips to Virginia to visit my parents, and on those 3 to 4 hours of traveling, I would listen to Ravi non-stop. And I'm sure Ravi would say, "Oh, Jed, I'm sorry that you had to listen to me the whole time." But honestly, when I had a question, yes, I'd pray to Jesus, but I would also listen to Ravi. As Kaylee McEnany said, Billy Graham was the great evangelist, and I think Ravi Zacharias was the great apologist. If you are a Christian, you are already called to be evangelists and apologists, and in order to honor Ravi's memory, I'm sure he would say, we need to honor Jesus. You see, Jesus didn't come to this world to win a debate. Ravi's purpose was never to seek a win for the sake of the argument. Ravi's life was an example of Jesus, because they both sought not to win an argument or a debate, but they both sought to win the heart of a person. Because behind each person is a soul that can be led to salvation. I myself want to see a lot of my family members, my friends, the lives that I've touched in heaven with me. So thank you, Ravi. Life's joys are joys only if they can be shared. And I want to thank you for sharing the knowledge, the beauty of God, and the reasons as to why we need to believe in Jesus Christ. So thank you. And you know, when I heard about your passing, it felt like I lost a really good friend. But I know, even though I didn't get to see you in this lifetime, I hope one day I get to meet you when I return to my Father's home. And in that moment, I hope that the one thing that Jesus will say to me is, "Well done, my good and faithful servant."
God is in the shadows in many ways, but He is also in the bright light of what His servants do every day. My prayer is that He will find me faithful, and that until He calls me home, I'll be willing to go anywhere, bear any burden for Him, and to recommit to Him afresh. It's a tall dream, and without His strength, it cannot be done. Yet with His strength, all things are possible. When I look at the life I've had, and at what the Lord has given me, my calling, my friendships, my beautiful wife and children, it is what dreams are made of. I have seen the world. I have walked with great leaders. I have slept in the villages and homes of the poor. I've had to stop at moments along the way and say, I can never believe this is what the Lord had in mind for me when He started to rebuild my life. Only as you keep in perspective your roots, your ordinary day-to-day life, and the grace that called you, are you able to see clearly the extraordinary privilege of speaking to people who make a difference in our world.